Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Hot Topic show. I'm Al Bernstein, and on this show, I get to talk to you about the topics that are on the minds of boxing fans right now. And one of the topics that people are talking about, that it's kind of percolating a little bit, is the idea of a very interesting fight on the women's side of boxing. And that is the possibility of a matchup between Clarissa Shields, who currently has the heavyweight championships, and Mikaela Mayer, who is a welterweight champion in the sport. Um, for these two fighters to face each other, they would have to meet in the middle, weight-wise, and that weight would likely be somewhere around 154. And first of all, let me say props to both of these fighters for seriously considering this matchup because uh, it brings with it challenges for each of the fighters. Now, for Mikaela Mayer right now, she was looking to unify the welterweight championship in a fight with Lauren Price. And that fight was almost agreed upon, and it kind of fell through. And now it isn't a fait accompli. So the idea of a big name matchup with somebody like Clarissa Shields is appealing to her, and she has said it. For Clarissa Shields, after coming off a big victory against Lanny Daniels, she has fought almost all of the, and beaten almost all of the top names from 160 up, except for Shadasia Green, who just re-won a title and or defended a title and added one. She is certainly a possible fight. But to be honest, that is not as big a fight as Mikaela Mayer would be in terms of marketability, and Shadasia Green would be there if Clarissa Shields chose to challenge her afterwards. This fight is intriguing for so many reasons, the idea of Shields and Mayer. Number one, I mentioned the challenge they would each be facing. For Clarissa Shields, the idea of coming down 20 pounds or so in weight, back to a weight that she hasn't fought at for some time, at 154, which is certainly about the lowest she could get to. That's a challenge for her. And she has said that should they make a fight like this, mandatory for her to have enough time, which I think is appropriate, and both sides would probably surely agree to, enough time for her to lose the weight in a healthy manner so that she can come in at her best and not present any risks to herself physically. For Mikaela Mayer, the challenge is the opposite, right? She moved up to 147 pounds and she's won the 147-pound title. Here she would be moving up yet another weight class. And more important than moving up another weight class, she'd be facing a fighter who is naturally bigger and stronger, someone who has prospered in the 160, 168, and now up to 175-pound weight divisions. So she would be facing a much bigger combatant and a strong one. And I think it speaks well of both women that they're willing to think about taking this challenge, because both of those challenges are significant for them. For Shields coming down and trying to be at her best, and for Mayer coming up and facing a bigger, stronger competitor. Now, these fighters were both fantastic amateurs, both Olympians. Shields winning back-to-back Olympic gold medals. And as professionals, the hallmark of their career, in my mind, has been how much they've improved every fight out. And here's the thing that's really remarkable to me. They both continue to improve. Now, even at 35, Meyer is a fighter who continues to evolve. Her last fight against Sandy Ryan might have been her best effort ever as a pro in every regard, the way she fought and what she's about. For Clarissa Shields, every time out, she adds nuances and refines her style, as she did against Lanny Daniels in her last fight in a superb performance. And to me, that's the part that is really fascinating, that you have these two fighters who continue to get better, even far into their professional career as champions. And both will be facing probably the best ring technician that they have yet faced. From purely being a technician in the ring and being able to execute, I think both women bring to each other the best that they have seen in the ring. So I love this fight. I think it is a fascinating fight. You know, we don't always embrace fights where the weight gap is so huge in fighters getting together, and this one is a pretty big weight gap. But I think in this instance, it would merit fans' attention, and I think would be a fascinating fight. And you know, one of the things I like about this fight isn't born out of some pretend grudge or phony made up feud. It's just about two women kind of, you know, especially in Mikaela Mayer's case, saying, what's on the horizon? How could I further prove myself? And with the price fight kind of in abeyance, she thinks, well, it'd be interesting, you know, pound for pound. Clarissa Shields right there, thought of as, you know, a groundbreaker in women's boxing. She's the person to fight. And she said, it's not, you know, it's just about that. And I think for Clarissa Shields as well, she wants to be challenged and wants to fight really good fighters. And Meyer certainly represents that. So I am all on board with this fight. Don't know if it's going to be made or if it can be made. I think it can be made. There's no question about that. But we'll see if it does. Anyway, that is a fight that I would love to see. On a sadder note, the boxing world is mourning the death of Dwight Muhammad Qawi, who died at the age of 72. He was a great light heavyweight champion, a fantastic cruiserweight, and even fought well at the heavyweight level. Now, my introduction to Dwight Muhammad Qawi, when he was still being called Dwight Braxton, was back in 1980, when I just started on the ESPN Top Rank Boxing Series, and they made a tournament, an ESPN tournament in several weight divisions. One of them was the light heavyweight division, and Dwight Braxton was one of the participants. In the finals, he met a fighter named Rick Jester, who was a fighter from Detroit. And Rick Jester looked like he was the prospect that might emerge from that tournament and then move on to bigger and better things. And they met in the finals. Well, oftentimes, right, things don't go the way people think it might. Dwight Braxton won that championship ESPN belt, so to speak, the tournament that they had, beat Rick Jester and did so very convincingly, and that sent him careening up the rankings as he continued to win over good light heavyweights and would eventually get a chance at a title, and did win the light heavyweight title, defended it a number of times, and then had a major unification match with Michael Spinks in what was one of the bigger fights of that period. He lost that, moved up to the cruiserweights, and had, with Evander Holyfield, one of the most legendary fights of the last 50 years. It was an astonishing matchup that anybody that is interested in boxing, and if you've seen it, go revisit it on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to go check out that fight between Dwight Muhammad Qawi and Evander Holyfield. It was a war of attrition, and one of the great efforts by both of those men in their career. Holyfield won the fight, but Dwight Muhammad Qawi certainly acquitted himself well. The last Dwight Muhammad Qawi fight I did was when he fought George Foreman. I announced that with Gil Clancy. He was up at heavyweight against a much bigger man. But even in that fight, Dwight Qawi, and George told me later, he was a tricky guy to fight. And Kawi found a way to land overhand rights, which was one of the weapons he had, and he was bouncing those off the head of Foreman. And Foreman made the point, if he had been a little bigger, Dwight Kawi, and not a fighter coming up weight classes to face him, he said that could have been a problem. But as it was, Foreman won the fight eventually. But Dwight Kawi was a man who had a difficult early period in his life. He ended up going to prison for 5 years on an armed robbery charge, got out, turned his life around, had this great boxing career, and then after he was done with boxing, dedicated himself to working for the Lighthouse, which is a group that helped young people and adults deal with alcohol and drug issues, and they helped rehabilitate them. And he dedicated his life post boxing to something that was very, very special. And I think that he felt that was his way of giving back to society and helping people. So he'll be missed. He was a great guy. It was always great to interact with him, and he certainly gave boxing fans lots of thrills and excitement. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Hot Topics. We'll see you next time.